Good afternoon. It's 2:02 p.m. on Monday, January 11th, 2021. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to the meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Will you all join me in saluting the flag of our nation, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for
which it stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
and
liberty and justice for all.
All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue today that is on the agenda. Please use the tool to raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. We request public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. Because this is an online meeting, I ask that if anyone other than the staff wants to speak, they use the raise your hand feature and wait to be called on. Please do not talk over each other. Remember to unmute yourself when you want to speak and then mute yourself when you're done. Just a reminder too, please silence all phones not being used for this meeting. Shoo away the dogs and maybe the little kitties and partners that might interrupt your meeting, or the U.S. Postal Service callback people like that just had. And don't forget to smile to all of your adoring fans across the world so they can see how happy you are to be here. Okay. John, could you go ahead and do the roll call, please?
Right. Anton Younger.
Here.
Lorraine Humes. Lorraine isn't here yet. Don Gosney.
I'm here.
Guadalupe Enalada.
Here.
Sally DeWitt.
I'm here.
Maisha Cole.
Present.
And John Anderson, I'm here. So the only one we're missing is Lorraine.
Which is great. And I also want to point out that our soon-to-be new CBOC member, Jason Lindsay, is also in attendance with us today. So, school trustee, Leslie Reckler emailed me earlier, said that she will be arriving a little bit later. She has a conflicting meeting, but she'll be participating. I'm not seeing, but do we have any other trustees that are participating today? Okay. All right. With regards to the agenda, is there any questions or problems with the order of things? Or if not, we'll accept the agenda as presented.
So Lewis is going to be just a little bit late to the meeting. He hopes to be here no later than 2:30. So within the staff reports, if we could maybe just go, maybe we'll do financials first and PMP to try to give him a chance to be here. And if not, Ellen's prepared to give the update.
Well, we turn it over to the staff for the staff reports. How you guys handle it, I'll leave in your hands. And by the way, this new location for you, it's a very nice looking image of you. Much better than that room that you guys were all before. But if nothing else, I'm able to see your smile instead of that mask. Oh, no, don't do that.
Yes, that is nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. All right, then we will accept the agenda as.
No, Don,
Yes.
Don, I have my hand up.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing much of anything. My screen's all messed up right now.
Okay, I'll
Go ahead.
wait. I have a couple questions. At the last meeting, we talked about getting a Zoom account, but I didn't see it on the agenda. Will you be updating us on that at the meeting?
Well, it'll be updated on when Lewis shows up. I mean, it's not really an agenda item,
Okay,
but it'll be updated.
all right, very good.
As you know, because you and I were in communication with Lewis, he was supposed to reach out to the IT people, and I just don't know what kind of response he's got. So
That's fine, that's fine. I didn't see it on the agenda, I just had a question.
okay,
Secondly, about our committee, I see the annual report committee isn't saying anything today. In our packet last month, we stated on our timeline, which was accepted, that today we would say who's on the committee.
okay. I asked for submissions from everybody, and I didn't get anything from the AR committee. So these are not fresh appointments to the AR committee. They're just continuing appointments. And as we've mentioned before, anybody wants to be on the AR committee, all they gotta do is just tell me and I just add the name.
Right.
I mean, it's not a formal process.
All right. I just, okay, fine.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda? Okay, then we will accept the agenda as presented. Do we have any public comment? I'm looking to see if any hands are raised. And I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Let me shuffle some papers here. And we'll just go ahead and turn things over to staff for the staff reports.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Wonderful to see you here today. And so, as mentioned, we're going to kind of mix things up a little bit in terms of presenting the financial reports. And so we actually are going to go ahead and get started on the PMP, which it looks like that's page 56.
Hold on a second. We're being presented with the wrong agenda packet. This is from March 9th.
This is version 3.
I'm looking at the date on it. It says March 9th, 20.
Huh. Okay, this is what I thought I downloaded. Is this the right?
No.
No. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so
Well, it begs the question.
version 3, right? Maybe I try the bottom link instead of the top link.
Well, this one's got the right date on it, at least.
Okay, progress.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, sorry, I was looking at reports for projects that were finished 7 months ago.
Yeah, no, I was looking at it too, going, this is different than I remembered, but okay. How about this one?
Yes. Now, I want to make sure everybody understands that I listened to what Ellen said last month about all the higher math she had to do in figuring out the page numbers. So I started the page numbering on the front page. So the number
I already noticed that, Dawn, and I am extremely appreciative, like extremely.
I try to be helpful. And now I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, and you gave me the number. Sorry, Melissa. What was that again?
56.
56. See, look at that. Isn't it beautiful how that works?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other thing we'll just say, as Dawn pointed out, we're trying to do it separately and kind of additional COVID safety. And so from time to time, if we look away from the screen, it's just to see another screen. And so just wanted to make sure that you knew that you do have our full attention. So good afternoon again. Happy New Year. Wonderful to be here and really great and happy to provide an update on the program management plan, which may feel like it stalled out a little bit. As you may recall, next slide, that we presented the draft program management plan to the joint board Cboc on September 30th. And that was really, really exciting. And we thought that we were nearing a finish line. But one of the things that we found as we continue to go through the public comments and really look at public perception of the document was, I think based on the way that it was pulled together and combined, it ended up being kind of a confusing document. So for those of you that have been along for the journey, you may recall that in the beginning, what we did was we took very specific items and we wrote up an individual narrative, and then we combined narratives into one of the 4 sections, being either program and operations, administration, project management, and fiscal. And so what ended up happening when we took each one of our 4 sections and put them together in an overall document is I think we ended up with something that was duplicative, created some confusion, There were items that were placed in one section and then referenced in another section. And we saw in some of the public comments that that just kind of made it confusing and hard to follow. We heard at the joint meeting what a transparent document this was going to be and how helpful it was going to be. And I think that we really interpreted that as a call to action to really improve this document from a stylistic perspective. We also then spent a couple months with this committee hearing about the really great work that you did with the annual report. And so I say all that to say what we're doing now is we're looking at it stylistically and more from an organizational framework to try to really produce a document that's easy to follow. And so with that, there's a couple of things that we're trying to do. Next slide. So the first thing that I did was I went to my mother-in-law, who is a retired teacher principal from another state, but worked for a very large urban district, and said, I know that my world is foreign to you. Can you please read this document and tell me how to make it better? And I assure you, we've been talking every weekend since then. And so some of her ideas and recommendations really come from these three areas. And so the first one, as I mentioned, is document organization. And so one of the initial comments was the PMP as drafted definitely follows kind of a contractual style, because that's my background, right? And so every item has a bulleted number reference, sometimes down to like the 5th digit. And, you know, received some feedback that that could be overwhelming. And there's some opportunities in the documents where bullets might be more appropriate and more easy from the reader standpoint, stylistically. We heard from Trustee Panis at the time that we really should add footers such that the sections were referenced and it would be much easier to walk back and forth in the document as you're maybe going from text to the actual appendices, documents, and forms, and all the different resources that are included. Received feedback that it's really hard to read 99 pages of text without any type of graphic. One of the kind of themes that comes up over and over again in the document is this bond controls team, which is really a foundation of the controls and really the format that we've built here. And that's kind of just introduced in a section without really the reader having maybe an understanding or a grasp of what that means. And then that just becomes a term that's used over and over again. And so thanks to Ellen joining our team, she's really good at taking words and creating graphics that help express ideas. And so we're going to be collaborating on putting together a graphic that will better describe the function and the formation of the bond controls team, so that hopefully early in the document, the readers can grasp that concept and it'll help carry them through. And then we're going to be linking throughout the document. And so I have become so accustomed to the CBOC packets and the ability to just click on a word and it'll jump to the form, etc. Such that, you know, some of the feedback we received is I've got 300 pages on my lap and you want me to keep jumping between page 4 and page 175. It is very difficult to do and to follow, and it also creates some confusion. And so we're going to be doing the linking. The second kind of overall theme is improving the readability and the clarity. And so we'll go through public comments here in a little bit. And I think as we receive those public comments, it really helps us understand what we think we may have accomplished, but we missed. Because, right, we think we did it. And so without hearing from other readers and other perspectives, we don't necessarily know that we missed the mark. And now that we've crossed over into a new calendar year, there's some 2021 updates, for example, the annual bidding adjustment. And so those changes are being made. And then lastly is enhancements. And this kind of comes from the drive that I think has really been born in this committee and continues to be a theme. And that's this continuous improvement and this active listening, right? And so as we looked at the public comments, one of the themes in the public comments we received is cite the reference, cite the code. And that is, I love that, right? This is like me all day. And so what we're working on now is putting together an appendix, which will essentially be a summary of the code references from the public contract code, the ed code, the government code, because we mention them briefly, but then gathering them all into a resource such that when there is the guidance that's in the code that really drives the work that we do, we're able to make that easy reference for you. And so we're working on a new appendix. And then lastly, update the appendix to reference the new organizational structure. And so what that means is, one of the strengths, I think, of the PMP that we developed together is there's an appendices that identifies the demonstration of the implementation of the recommendation and its location within the document. Because things are moving around in the document to achieve some of this clarity through kind of organization, that will then need to be updated to reflect these changes. And while we're really excited about all of these things, and then do truly believe that when we make these changes, we will have the document that was described and celebrated, which is something that is transparent and clear, and really accessible to our community as they want to understand more about our program and as we can continue to build trust. This takes a lot of administrative work. And so not necessarily the work that I can do on a day-to-day basis. And so there was administrative support that was assisting with the PMP. There was a medical issue. They're now able to return back to work. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. And so that administrative kind of resource to really effectuate these changes within the document such that we can bring it back together to this body and then ultimately to our board for adoption is well underway. And so next slide. So as I kind of shared, here's kind of the steps of where we're headed. So we need to finalize the draft and make the changes as indicated. We need to do a final update to the public comments received, publish online, and then present to the board for adoption. Next slide. And so the next series of pages, and we won't go through these one by one, but essentially this is the collection of the public comments that was shared about midpoint last year, and the public comments received, which has kind of the section reference, the location of the item, the feedback that we received from the public, and then the staff's response. And so staff's response is somewhere between this has been implemented, this section has been revised, or that this section is under consideration. And what under consideration really means is that the demonstration of the intent of that comment as we best understand it will be reflected in this final draft that we're really going to be doing a concentrated effort on now. And so at this point, I think that kind of concludes my presentation for this item. And, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
It's your show, Melissa.
So, Lorraine?
Yeah, hi, Melissa. On the comments from the public, in your staff response, you have implemented and revised. What's the difference?
So some of them, it said, make this change, and we just changed it exactly as taken. Some of them said, maybe if you go back earlier on, so revised meant, so for example, number 61. So Associate Superintendent of Operations, this position doesn't exist. So this was about aligning the titles which sounds simple, but actually proved to be a little bit harder than it should be. And so it was revised to reflect the title. And so this one doesn't say, this position does, it says this position doesn't exist, right? So we had to revise the title. It doesn't say change this title for this title. And if it did, then we would just put implemented, because we would have implemented exactly what it said. Does
Okay,
that-
good.
It's a subject to interpretation.
That's fine.
Any other questions on this item? Mr. Panis? You're muted. We can't hear you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gosney and Ms. Payne and the rest of the team. I'd like to thank you for the great work the facilities team is continuing to do in updating this document. And I'm excited to hear about all the work you've done as we move this forward. And it's particularly great to, about the work about doing a better definition of what the bond team is doing. So thank you so much for your work on that. I did want to note that just on page 75, there's no staff response on comment number 7, on public comment number 74. But thanks again for your work, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the next draft of the document.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for this item?
Melissa, do you have a response to why there might not be a comment, a staff comment?
So as I quickly look for this one, I think this one probably will come through a better explanation of the section. And so some of the final staff responses are probably going to be more of a clarification. And that's a clarification that we really intend to make within the document itself. And so we'll make sure the next time we provide staff response to all of the public comments that we'll have a response there. But as I look at this one, I think this is really a question about the different types of information management systems that we have. And so another area within the document where we need to provide some more clarity. And this is kind of a similar theme that we saw in a number of the public comments. And so we'll strive to make that much more clear.
Thank
So
you.
this one would be under consideration, would be the appropriate staff response at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to welcome trustee Jamila Smith-Folds, who has just joined our meeting.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. Mr. Ghazi, is it 2 o'clock or 2:30?
2 o'clock,
2 o'clock. Sorry about that. Sorry I'm late. Thanks for having me.
always. Okay, Melissa?
Okay, so I think if that wraps up the program management plan update, what I'd like to jump to now is just an update on our financial reports. And one of the things that I want to share, Ellen, if you can go, actually, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, if that would be okay. I'm going to jump in here to share. And that is because can you guys see the bond program KPI summary?
Yes, we can.
What page
So
is that?
we have our suite of monthly reports, as we typically do provide, and those are all included. One of the things that is special about the end of the calendar year is the CBOC annual reports are based on a calendar year. And as a school district, most of our reporting is on a fiscal year. So we run July 1 to June 30. And so one of the things that we've developed is the annual reports that we provide. And so I really wanted to take the time today to talk a little bit more about this report. And thank you to the email that we received earlier today from Mr. Youngher. We have updated the KPI and resolved the numbering. And so I wanted to just take a little bit of time to walk through this presentation, because this is the one that we don't see as often, and take the opportunity to answer some of the questions. I did email this revised report to Mr. Gosney right before the meeting started. And so you should all be receiving a copy of this report shortly. This is
Right,
the,
Melissa, on that issue, I'm going to take the liberty of swapping out these pages with your new report so that our official agenda packet will have the correct information.
that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, because
Um,
I think that's going to be referenced a lot more than anybody saying, hey, that looks like a different page than what I got the day before.
And the major change that has been made, and I'm not sure if you guys can see my cursor or not, but it was the numbering, aligning these footnote numbers to the remainder of the document. And so this is essentially the formation of this report this is really your cover page. And so as you can see, there are a number of footnotes throughout this document. And then the subsequent pages provide really the note and the explanation of the data. And so there are essentially two questions that I'd like to address that were raised by Mr. Youngher. And one of them is in regards to note 5, which indicates a bond sale in March of 2021. And one of the things that we shared last month is that is not actually the plan at this time. But one of the things that we think is really important about this report is we must reflect the board approved schedule. And so since that hasn't changed, that is what this note is reflecting here in note 5. That's why it says the board approved the potential issuance for March 2021 of the first bond issuance of Measure R. There is no plan for that bond sale at this time. Secondly, and this happens a couple of times through the report, you may see up here under note 8. Can you guys see that okay? So it has this particular note is about interest earnings. And so one of the things that it reflects is it reflects the prior year, and then it says fiscal year 2021, and then there's a total. So one of the questions is related to, does this reflect the data as of December 31st, 2020? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so for clarity of data, prior represents all of the financial information up to our fiscal year end June 30, 2020. When it says fiscal year 21, this represents the first 6 months of fiscal year 2021. So this second column here, fiscal year 2021, is July 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. And hopefully that's clear. So this really represents half of the fiscal year. And that part of the reason why we separate it this way instead of just collapsing those two columns in one is, should there be a question or a desire to verify those numbers, we know that prior year takes us through June 30, 2020, and that fiscal year 2021 in this report, since the data is through December 31st, is that July to December period. And so there's a couple of tables that do have that information. Lastly, there was a question related to table 4 here at the bottom of the cover sheet, which provides an average monthly spending. And it gives you a 3-month average, a 6-month average, and a 12-month average. And because this report it's an annual report for fiscal year 2020, we'll start with the 12 months. So the 12 months is going to take you from January of 2020 to December 31st, 2020. The 6 months is that half of fiscal year that we talked about before. That's your July to December. And the 3 months is essentially if you take December and you count back 3. So that's going to be October, November, and December. And that's how these averages were put together for the KPI. And so just in the interest of time, if anybody has any questions, or if anyone would like me to go into more detail on the suite of our traditional monthly reports, I'm happy to do so. But I thought it was really important to address this report and kind of do a refresher on it together as a group. And so, Mr. Youngher?
I'm here.
Did you have a question?
Yes. Am I recognized?
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
In regards to your statement on footnote 5, it seems to me it would be appropriate to add the note to what you just said. You're quoting the board action. It seems to me under that you could say it's the staff's understanding, which has been which both Dr. Wall and Mr. Freeze have both publicly and sent emails out saying there's no bond issue scheduled for March 21. So that's a public record that Dr. Wall and Mr. Freeze have said. So I don't not see why you could not add a note on note 5 that says that and keep the 150 up there. I think that would be appropriate disclosure. So that's my suggestion.
Okay. I don't think we take any issue to that. Would be happy to make that change. It does say potential issuance, but we can go ahead and add a sentence right here after that to make that further disclosure so that it's very clear. And Ms. Humes?
Yes. On page, let's see. On your financial reports, you have the check the check information. I've seen that before, but you have a section there where you have now on the, I don't know which version this is, but on page 53, but you could break out the bond information. It's right after the check listing. And I haven't seen that before. And I was wondering if you would explain the columns there.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I believe, is this what you're referring to here on the screen?
Let me see here.
Or maybe it's this one. Is it the salary data information?
No, it's right after the salary, I think.
Okay, this one?
No, I have it on page 53. Try again. Next one. Let's see. Down the bottom. Yeah, this thing. Now what? I haven't seen this before.
It's the cash flow on page 52,
Yes.
53.
And if you could explain the left column, the headings there, what is this about, in other words?
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to go back one page. And thank you for drawing attention to this report. So this is the cash flow. You can see as indicated here, it's based on a forensic recommendation. And so this is a summary of our multi-year projection for the bond program. And so starting on page 52, what you have is essentially a summary. And so you'll see it's the same left-hand column will be reflected on each one of these pages. Page 52 is essentially your summary of all of the data.
Okay.
And so as we jump into page 53, this is a fiscal year's breakout by month. And so you can see kind of following across the top, it starts with July of 20, which is the first month of fiscal year 2021. And then it goes through June of 2021, which is the last month of fiscal year 2021 for the district from a fiscal year standpoint. And then we do have here, this is for accruals. So this is part of our year-end closeout process. And then you'll have the total. So this is the anticipated total for 2021. And so you can see here at the top, if we were anticipating a bond issuance, you would see it here. It is not reflected. Below that, here's other revenue. So under Fund 35 state funding, this right here, that's the $23 million that we received from the state for the Pinole Valley High School application. And so that's additional revenue. And then here under interest earnings and other miscellaneous revenue, these are the actual and then projections through the remainder of the fiscal year based on the cash that we have. LAIF, local agency investment. This is an investment that we do with dollars to make a higher interest. And then this goes through assets and liabilities. And there's better explanations for these kinds of things in report 13. Then we have cash on hand, broken out by measure. And then as well as the non-bond measure resource and Fund 35 for the overall ending fund balance. And so here, and then below there, you have our projects. So this is on a project by project basis, our projection of our spend by project across the fiscal year. And so this is how our best guess based on all the information that we have today in our planning. And then this page essentially represents for you fiscal year 2021. And so on page 54, you get the next fiscal year. So fiscal year 2022 in that same format. On page 55, then you have fiscal year 2023 and the projections. And as you know, kind of as the cash flow gets further and further out, right, we have less information for future years, but we're giving you the best information that we have at this date. And this is really a document that we as staff use monthly, but it's something that we want to share from time to time here with the group to really give you an idea of what we're planning and what our projections are.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, at the very top above the where it says beginning cash,
Mm-hmm.
you have some in there. What is that amount? Where do you get that? Because we haven't sold any new bonds. Is that from the old bonds? It's not listed out underneath it where that cash is from.
Yeah, those are the dollars that we have.
That's what's left, like from bond. Well, we have D&E, which we haven't. Are these the ones from D&E?
Yeah, so last fiscal year, or now I'm getting all mixed up between my fiscal years and my calendar years. So last calendar year, we did our final bond issuance for Measure D 2010 and Measure E. And so that was last calendar year. And so we do have the dollars, and really that final bond issuance of Measure D 2010 and Measure E, those are really the dollars that were anticipated for the final phase of implementation of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. So in July of last year, we brought to the board the site budget authorization to allocate those funds to the project so that we could really get those projects started in the planning and procurement and then moving forward into design. And those are the final suite of critical needs projects from the 2016 Facilities Master Plan, as well as the campus replacement project for Lake Elementary School. And so kind of that list is what you see down below here in green. And this is how we anticipate when we'll be spending dollars for those projects based on where those projects are in the process, right? Are they in planning or design? Are they in construction or closeout? And so this is how we really take our implementation plan and what we believe is the realistic schedule for the project and when we see those dollars being spent.
Okay. Now also down in completed site projects, like for instance, you've got Cameron and Collins, and you're starting to spend in February of 2021. But we haven't sold any of those bonds. From my understanding, was that supposed to be from new bond material that you'll be doing it for those?
So if we kind of just walk down the list, so for Cameron, Collins, so the completed site projects, that green bar that you see, you can see that's kind of zeroed out. And so the white lines that you see that each identify a project, Cameron, Collins, Fairmont, Highland, those total up, those are our active site projects. So those are the projects where the board has approved the budget, and within the board approved budget dollars, this is our anticipation of when we'll be spending those dollars based on where we are with the implementation of the project. And so Some of these, for example, Cameron and Collins, that's part of our final phase of implementation of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. Whereas Fairmont is headed more towards, we're just in the final stages of that overall project, right? Because we've been working on that project for a couple of years. Cameron and Collins have just started really with the planning and design. So we just hired the architect for both of those. And
Well,
so,
if I was under the impression that they were to come out of Measure R money.
no, so those are part of the, when the board approved the 2016 Facilities Master Plan implementation, it was based on the remaining bond authority of the program, which at the time was Measure D 2010 as well as Measure E. And then we've been able to supplement those dollars through the state grant applications and funding that we've received, through returning dollars back to the fund balance when we've done the financial reconciliation and close out of the project, and then come back to the board and we return some of those funds back to the bond fund. And so similarly, as we are completing the implementation of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan, which was based on funds at that time, currently the district is working on an update to the Facilities Master Plan. And that will really culminate with the board's approval of an implementation plan of how the Measure R dollars will be spent. And so that plan is going through the process, but it isn't something that has been completed or approved by the board.
Okay.
Does that help clarify a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'll get with you later on it for more particulars. I'll send you an email.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions at this time on the financial reports?
I have a comment. I'm sorry, because I'm a co-host, I can't raise my hand, except like that. When you were talking about the KPI report, you mentioned that this was a refresher. And for some of us that have been around for a while, we're familiar with KPI reports, but you've got at least 3 CBOCers, you've got a brand new trustee that's attending our meeting, and a number of other people from the public that are attending. So this is not a refresher, this is brand new to them. So it's handy for you to explain it as you did, so they have some idea. And they may even be trying to pronounce P. What does KPI sound like? But it is very helpful to even for those of us who've been around for a while. A refresher never hurts.
Thank you. And, I want to thank Mr. Younger too for his comments, because I think one of the things we've really tried to do with our financial reports is beef up the notes, right? People are used to financial reports that are all numbers. A number of our financial reports have a lot of words too, because we really want to try to make them as accessible as possible. And I think the more disclosure that you can make and the more clarity you can provide with the data source and what these numbers mean, since we're representing a program that goes back decades and we're representing it, essentially in its totality, I think it's really important. And so we do always look forward to the questions. Ms. DeWitt, do you have a question?
Yes, this looks so good. Melissa, I just love this report. I love the cash flow report. I love the way you present it, everything about it. I just want to know if there was any other discussion since our last meeting about including all project expenses in the PMP as well as in the facility master plan, or if you're still limiting the scope of the facility master plan and the PMP to somehow bond related dollars.
So I don't really have an update at this time. Generally speaking, the PMP was really kind of the catalyst for it, was really just a bond vision. Same with the facilities master plan. But I will tell you that internally as staff, there have been a lot of conversations about how this influences our work, right? So as I've shared, the bond program management plan created a bunch of different resources and tools. For example, our proposal approval cover sheet. Well, we use that for our maintenance department. We use that for all of the different facility funds. And so it actually isn't just limited to the bond program. I think at this time, the focus for completing the program management plan is really doing it from a bond lens. But I do think that there's lots of opportunity to develop some additional narrative that speaks to exactly what you're talking about, because these internal controls that we do, this is just our process now. So in our implementation of managing the dollars associated with the restricted facility funds, it's not different for us. The only thing that really changes is who is the department lead and who has that initial approval. The form is essentially the same. And so I think it's important to talk about that. And same with the financial reports. And so there are some differences between multi-year projections for the bond program and how, for example, we look at some of our other funding sources where the stream of revenue, the predictability of the revenue, for example, is different, right? And so how we create those reports and how far we're able to plan in the future, et cetera, is a little bit different. But we're definitely talking about it. And it's one of the kind of goals that we have for this fiscal year is to really kind of expand our suite of facility fund reports and really looking to bring that to the facilities committee so that that information is more, you know, forward facing.
That's good to hear. I think that the process that you're putting in place here is very, very strong management, and to have the other plus to including all projects in the same plan and reporting system is that the general public can then look at the plan, especially online, and see everything that's going to happen to a particular school. And the way it stands right now, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they can't do that. They have to know about that extra money that is going to go into a school. And in some cases, that extra money is not incidental. It's fairly substantial. So anyway, bravo. I think you're definitely going in the right direction. Great job.
Thank you. One of the things that we're looking to do too is there's a number of reports that come, just district-wide reports, right? And so the use of some of those facilities funds are embedded in those reports, but you need to know the cues, right? You need to know what you're looking for and how to better understand that information. For example, one of the requirements of the Ed Code is that contracts are essentially ratified by the board every 60 days. And so as a CUPCA district, we do small public works contracts less than 60,000, and we have a separate précis that we bring to the board within every 60 days, right? So we're working on the one right now that will be coming to the next board meeting, not this week, but later in the month of January. And so that actually represents funding sources across, you know, unrestricted funds, site funds, nutrition, any type of public works within that threshold. And so you're right, there are pieces of information that are out there about helping get people to the right information and to know what they're looking for and where they can find it is really important. And that's kind of the types of conversations that we've been having internally about how we help point people into the right direction of what already exists and what's already available. Because as you know, I mean, COVID has, we have limited resources. And so we're trying to maximize our use of resources the best way that we can. And so
makes sense.
Don't have to create something new if you have something that exists and you can just help point people in the right direction and maybe improve upon what you already have.
Yeah, but I look forward to the time when we can really look at this as such a model. It's really going to be a good model for way beyond West County. So great job. I hope it all comes together in our great vision, but I understand you've got limited resources right now. So onward.
Okay, I think I better turn it over to the rest of staff.
Actually,
Oh, wait, I have one more.
Lorraine has something, but then we do need to move on because we spent a great deal of time on just the first half of the staff reports.
Okay. Melissa, I'm looking at the budget versus commitments and expenditures page for the master plan. To me, it's page 33, but I don't think I have the version that you have there. And I'm looking at the budget main column, and under that, the approved budget changes, where you have the red printing with the parentheses around them. Now, I just want to see if my assumption is right. In the case when you've got 100% completion, that's leftover money, and that'll go into the bond fund account. If you go down to Highland, you see that my assumption is that the critical needs were taken care of, but then this water and power upgrade came. So the excess money, that's $747,000, was just popped up into the water and power upgrade because you hadn't budgeted for it. But below it in Lake, you have under the portable demolition, you've got $350,000 left. Now, obviously, the campus replacement is much more than that. Will those funds just be popped into the general fund, or are you going to move those up into Lake, or what do you do with them?
So bond dollars stay in the bond fund. So essentially in this approved budget challenge, or excuse me, approved budget changes column, what it's reflecting is something that we've brought to the board for their approval. And so part of our philosophy in the 2016 facilities master plan was, in the event that there were project budget savings, that we would come back to the board, and staff's recommendation would be to return those funds to the fund balance such that they could continue to support other projects, because we do have instances where the project needed a budget increase. And so a couple of the instances that you show are an interesting example, but I would say for the most part, everything that you stated is true and accurate. And so when you see approved budget changes that are in red, those are dollars that were returned to the fund balance. Lake Elementary School is an interesting example. And in that one, the overall budget for Lake Elementary School was $66.1 million, but there were some portables that were no longer being used. And so we moved some of those budget dollars ahead such that we could demolish the portables. What I'd like to recommend that you use as a resource, and again, we're happy to answer questions through email, but one of the resources that I would recommend looking at is, we have a note in our report 13, and I believe it's note 5, and I may be misspeaking, but there's definitely a note in report 13 which identifies all of the budget changes, plus or minus, that were recommended by staff and then approved by the board. And part of our commitment in the management of the bond program is any increase or decrease to the board approved project budget goes to the board for approval. And we do that through our site budget authorization form, which looks very similar to report 2. This is something that you guys are used to seeing. And so the last board approved budget change was December 16th of 2020. That was returning project dollars back to the fund balance from Crespi. And so there's cues throughout our financial reports that help point you in the direction of some of this information. And I would recommend starting with the facilities master plan project budget footnote in report 13. And if you have any additional questions, definitely send us an email, and we'd be happy to answer those for you.
Great, thank you.
And so with that, I'm going to stop my share and turn it back over to Ms. Mejia Hooper to drive, and Lewis for our project report.
All right, well, sorry for being late today. Let's see. So Melissa, remind me where we are. Are we going back up to the top of the agenda then?
Yes, so you'll be providing, I have literally been talking the whole time. You didn't miss much, and thank you everybody for your patience.
Louis,
Opportunity to
before
learn
you
together.
start,
You're on page 8. Go ahead.
Louis, before you start,
Yes.
while you were gone, Lorraine was asking about an update on some sort of a meeting forum that the district might be able to provide for our AR committee and our training. Do you have any kind of an update that you can give us?
I don't, not at this point, but it's certainly something we can get back to you on.
Okay, we are in need of it now. So if you could prioritize that, we'd surely appreciate it.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide. So I guess we'll just go over the bond project status report, give you an update on the projects, and then we have some photos as usually behind on our active projects. So just to give everybody an update, Riverside Elementary, site improvements. So this is up here underneath design because as we spoke before, we're breaking up the Riverside project into 2 pieces. So underneath the critical needs, we have the soil stabilization component. In order to try to expedite that along, we had pulled out of the design build contract component that was actually going to be the site improvements, which was we had to relocate a play structure. We've been talking with the site staff about building a shade structure, new kindergarten play area. So this contract you see up here in design is actually going to be a contract with an architect just to do that design component for the improvements to the play yard itself. Core months of fall protection, just moving down the list. This is still in DSA. We had anticipated that it would have came out last month in December. It is still stuck in structural. We're hoping that it'll come out, although unfortunately DSA does not provide us great updates on when items are going to come out of DSA. We know what % they're being reviewed, but there is no estimated time for coming out. And projects have just been running way late in DSA. But I would anticipate, just looking at the latest updates, that we should see this come out, I would imagine, within the next 30 to 60 days. And I guess the timing rule would be really, will work for us really as we start moving. You know, we're in the winter now, but as we move towards spring and summer, the ideal time to work on the roof would be as soon as the weather turns. So we're not too worried about that. We know we can't do any work this time of year anyways. The Cameron Critical Needs project, I think Melissa had touched on that within her reports. Really, we just went out with our architectural services. So currently we're just waiting on our design contracts to come back from our architects. And once those contracts are in place, fully signed and executed, then we'll begin the design process with those architects to move these forward. So, and just as a reminder, Cameron School, this $1.3 million, the scope of this work is going to be to replace the antiquated boiler heating system within that school site, as well as doing some accessibility upgrades to the restrooms. We believe with that scope of work, we'll probably pretty much exhaust out our existing budget for construction. Collins Elementary Critical Needs project. Again, this is a project that is based around providing, eliminating the boilers within the school and providing air conditioning and heating to the campus. We envision this will actually come with some electrical upgrades that will be required to support the additional loads that will be added based upon the air conditioning. And then there will be some accessibility requirements that will come along. DSA typically requires about 20% of your budget be spent on accessibility upgrades. So we know there will be a component. I believe the last piece of this was the stage within the multi-purpose room is a temporary stage. We're going to look to either try to replace that with something, but we know it'll have to become accessible and we'll need to have a better design on that. Hercules Middle High School, this is the new science building. This actually, we're getting ready to put out an RFQP for architectural services. Because of the size of this particular project, using our existing architectural pool didn't seem appropriate. It's been several years since we've actually went out with a new pool, so this one will go out underneath an RFQP. It'll be open to all architectural firms to take a look at this, and then we'll evaluate the RFPs when they come back in. So the Kennedy Critical Needs would actually fall underneath that same umbrella. Unfortunately, we're kind of holding on this as we move through our Critical Needs project, just kind of figuring out, with our master plan prioritization planning. So we're kind of in a hold with this just for a moment, but eventually it will go through the same process with an RFQP for architectural services as that scope gets further design, further vetted out exactly where we're going. Currently underneath the critical needs, as you're aware, is the elimination of the classroom buildings and the relocation into the portables that are currently housed the Caliber Charter School along Burke Avenue. Shannon Elementary Critical Needs. Shannon is a new multipurpose room to replace the portable multipurpose room they have. This architectural contract has been released and board approved. Again, we're just starting the design phase for this one. And Stage kind of fits into that same box as Kennedy, and we've kind of talked about this before. The critical needs was really the elimination of some classroom buildings and moving them into portables. Until the prioritization is complete for Measure R, we're kind of on hold, not knowing where Stage is going to fall within that list of projects. And then under procurement, we have Lake Elementary.
Excuse me, Louis.
Yes,
back on Stage. You and I have toured the site. You've shown me all the problems on there, and there's no question that 78-year-old school. I mean, if you sneeze as you're driving by, it's going to fall down on its own. So, I mean, do you really think that with the prioritization, that it's going to drop from being the #1 school on the list?
Don, the prioritization, I'm not saying it's going to drop. It's just I don't have control over that. It is a process, right? Like all things. And when all the chips fall at the end, if I can use that phrase, we'll find out where Stage lands, and then we can better evaluate how we go about doing this critical needs phase and do the interim housing / replace permanent classroom buildings with portable classrooms. So
I can guarantee you that where the chips are going to fall, they're going to fall flat to the ground, because that school is in bad shape. We both know that.
Yeah. Anyways, I just want to tell you where it is. So that's kind of where we're standing right now. So it is on hold at the moment until we get through that process. Okay. So Lake Elementary School, we're getting ready to go out for the DB. So the bridging documents are complete. We've shortlisted our design build firms. We're just trying to complete our package now, make sure it's in the best shape it can be as we go out for our DB proposals. And Pinole Valley High. So the good news is, coming into the new year, we were notified on December 23rd, just before the break, that we have DSA approval now on both projects, which is the bleacher replacement and all the fields replacement for that campus. And so, having received the final documents from our architect, we're in the process of, again, cleaning those documents up, making any last minute changes that we have, and getting ready to put that out. And that will be a design bid build project going out versus the design build concept we've been using for Lake. Riverside design build, we're well underway with our DB entity as we move through this soil stabilization project. Last week we had a meeting with DSA to just review expectations for both CGS and DSA, the process by which we'll submit, and who will be the geotech of record on this particular project. So very aggressive schedule, hoping to try to build it this summer. And we'll see where we go. So we're looking at submittals, I believe, to DSA at the end of February. So very aggressive time schedule on this one. And in construction, we have Richmond High Critical Needs Project. This one is actually winding down. We have a February completion on it. And we are on schedule to wrap that up by the end of February. Fairmont Critical Needs. Here we have phase 5 listed, which was cleaning up all the hallway walls, and we have some photos of that. And we still have some dollars left over. We're looking at a couple other projects out there. We know we have some work in the kitchen area. We're currently replacing the carpets. And actually, I believe the phase 5 is the carpets. We're doing the carpets and the portables right now, replacing that with Bct Flooring. And then the E-Rate Year 23 wireless project, that one is getting ready to go out. Actually, I'm sorry, E-Rate 23 has actually been awarded Decotech. That project is getting ready to start. And then we have E-Rate 24 coming up. And then Michelle Obama New Campus, it's in closeout. So we've moved in over the holidays. So now those folks that are actually working from the campus are actually on site. So let's go ahead and just go to the next slide.
Hold on, Louis, can
Yes.
you explain to those of us that are not quite as in tune as you are, what is BCT flooring?
Oh, VCT, vinyl,
Oh,
vinyl-based tile.
thank you.
Sorry about that. Next slide. So this is a photo of Michelle Wellman. I have to thank Mr. Gosney for this one. He actually took this photo and shared it with us, and we're sharing it with you. But it's a great photo of the entryway to Michelle Obama as we kind of close down this particular project. So we just wanted to share that. Next slide. Richmond High, just an update. We kind of talked through it. So next slide. So these are just some photos of the new gymnasium. As we're finishing up on the exterior, you can see the coloring going on the final stucco coats that are happening. In the foreground, you can see the concrete plaza area as that's being finished up. The photo on the right is actually a photo, if you notice that handrail that goes around, this is taken from the perspective of looking from the existing bleachers, or if you want to call it the field house, back towards the new gymnasium on the backside. That plaza area that's on the other side of that retaining wall where you see the hand railing, that's actually where, there you go, you can see where the hand is. There's a roll-up door that takes you out of the weight room, and this is kind of an extension of the weight room onto the plaza area so that athletics, those type of things can actually, the weight room is decent size, but during the nice weather days, you can open that up, bring the air in, take the activities to the outside as well in the plaza area. So it's a very nice addition to that.
Sorry, Louis, like the weight machines and everything, are any chance are they on wheels so that they can be wheeled out into the open area?
No, so the weight machines, all that will be fixed, but there are other activities. So they have exercise balls, you name it, that they'll be able to take outside into the open space.
Okay.
So kind of to the coaches and instructors' imagination on what they want to do with the space. So next slide. So on the interior of the gymnasium, you can see it's been painted, scoreboards are up, but we're working on the flooring. So on the left-hand side is or is actually the dance flooring, but it would be the same for the gym. The plywood flooring, so it's a multi-layered floor that goes above the concrete, and so the dance floor is actually going down, and then on the right-hand side, you can see the wood floor within the gymnasium. It's been acclimated already. Installers are actually laying that now, and it's nearing completion. Next slide. And again, this is just a photo looking from the new gymnasium back towards the science building. What you see with the scaffolding around again is the elevator. So the elevator is really the final component of the science building that needed to be finished. So it's wrapped, it's in the phases of being stuccoed. The final touches, the hand railings going on. And this backside has not been painted yet. So it still has the original colors on it. Once the elevator's in place, and the stucco's done, then this back elevation will get painted to match the other sides of the building. So next slide. And this is just another close-up of the elevator. And again, you can see where the painting work has not been completed on this portion of it, but that will become very shortly as they finish up the stucco work. Next slide. Fairmont, next slide. And again, this is kind of just the before and after photos. On the left-hand side, obviously, this is the before photo, kind of the dingy look of Fairmont in the hallways. And we just really thought it was appropriate to do some upgrading and bring it up to today's standards. And on the right, you can see that we've cleaned it up. We've added new wall finishes to the hallway below the 8-foot line. We've put a wainscoting in there, which is like a Formica, which is scuff resistant, very cleanable. We know there's, with some of the special ed classes they have here with the trikes and things we see in the hallways, this material will be very durable. And for those that have not seen the Fairmont on the inside before, this color combination on the floor extends into all the classrooms, as well as the paint scheme falls into all the classrooms. So it's a nice way to kind of wrap up what we've done for the interiors of Fairmont and the classroom wings. Next slide. If there's any questions, otherwise Ellen will present on this.
So we have one question in the chat, just wanted to address while we're talking about the 2016 facilities master plan implementation, and that's from Trustee Smith-Folds. And so the question is, does the district consider Hercules Middle and Hercules High School as one, and who will own the new science wing? And so as we moved this project forward with the budget, what we did was the facilities master plan split the budget between Hercules Middle School and Hercules High School because of the scope of work is a new science building that will be shared between the sites. For clarity and financial reporting, we put the budget together under Hercules High School and added a footnote because essentially it'll be one project. And if there's anything else that you guys want to add, hopefully that helps address your question.
Also, just because it's shared does not necessarily mean, I know there's been a lot of concern raised by the two schools now that they've really kind of separated their operations. Just because it's a shared building does not mean that there has to be student crossover within the building or for the building to function. So we are aware of the desire for the science building to not promote intermingling between the middle school and high school. And so that'll be a component worked out through design.
And the location is right behind the library, is that correct? On that little hill?
Somewhere in that general vicinity, because we don't have the architect, it hasn't been cited yet. The master plan shows it kind of in that area. But I'd like to reserve the ability to place that building. It's got to be somewhere in the middle, obviously, if both schools are going to share it, but exactly how it fits there will depend more on topography and utility placement and those kind of things.
Okay, thank you so very much.
So are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay, so facility master plan update. Just to give you a glimpse of what's been going on since our last meeting. Since the last meeting, we had the 4th committee meeting on December 15th. And you can see the chart there really describes where the prioritization committee left off. The goal of that meeting was to get down to 15 criteria or less, as well as establish the metrics. We didn't quite get to that metrics discussion. So that is something we are going to have to round up back in the new year to do. And so moving on to kind of describe those next steps in that prioritization process is really, there's a variety of these criterias that were either kind of part of the last version of the facility master plan or brand new. So we really want to provide another opportunity for additional input before the final weighting occurs by the committee to create the final recommendation that will go to the board. So the board is establishing a new facilities committee. Since we've got a new committee with 2 new members on it, we really want to round back to them and confirm our process before we move forward in setting that community input process. But once we have the community input, we will be going back to the prioritization committee for a final recommendation, and that way that can be moved on to the board. Once that's approved by the board, we have one priority list, which is the 19 sites for rebuild and full modernization, but we also have the other initiatives that were set forward by Measure R, which were the district-wide look at HVAC and technology. So we need to get that component together and then create options to combine these different lists into a single implementation plan. So those are the next steps going forward. Any questions? Yes, Lorraine. I think you're still on mute.
You muted, Lorraine.
Sorry about that. On the page before this
Yes.
one, you've got the where you are now. What is the key to this ID? I mean, one, you have an F and then you have an L&S and then you have 4 letters down here.
Right, yes, thank you for pointing that out. I should have explained that. So when we started with this, we had not only the original criteria that was created in 2016, which I believe there was 12. In addition to that, when we got the community survey back, we added the criteria that was suggested by the community, which got us up to almost, I believe, 50 different criteria that were under consideration. And so we gave them letter identifications just to try to not make it seem like they were already numbered 1 through 50. Like, we wanted to give them letters to try to make it less like those were predetermined. And then what the committee did at the last meeting was they spent significant time combining some of the different criteria together that overlapped and had similar potential metrics. And so when you see more than one letter listed on a line item, it is because those were actually 2 separate criteria or more in the case of the last row there, where we have 4 different ones that were combined together. So it was really looking at the metrics and what we had available to us, and some of them really did overlap. And so that was the results of the committee's work.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Don.
First off, that last line, it looks like the initials of an old railroad.
It does.
K-E-N-N-O. But as you all know, that I serve on the prioritization committee representing the CBOC, and you've got a wide variety of opinions on what is important. Now, I look at the facility itself more than anything else. I look at the building, the structure, the way it's laid out, and such like that, the age of the facility, where other people are looking at more social issues, the ethnicity of the students attending there, whether it's flatland or hill property, whether affluence or less affluent. But there's a wide variety. I mean, that's diversity. But everybody has a chance to weigh in. We take a vote on every one of these issues. Sometimes I've been on the winning side, and a lot of times I'm not. But it is a fair process. But it's be curious to see, once this gets turned over to the board, how much of these they'll accept, because these are just going to be recommendations to the board. They're not going to be they're not directives, of course, because we can't direct. We weren't elected. We were appointed. It'd be fully in the hands of the board to decide what kind of criteria they want to use. And as Helen pointed out, we still have to discuss the weighting. By weighting, we're not talking about like weighting in the DSA. We're talking about how much weight a particular item should have. Which is more important, windows that you can view out of, or green open space to spend the spring months teaching outside. That kind of weight. So it'll be curious how we go on that. And we've tried very hard to make sure that the participants of the committee don't just focus in on the school that their children attend. But it's awfully difficult not to think in those terms, because that's the center of your universe, where your kids are going to school. So, but anyway, it's I appreciate all the work that Ellen and the rest of the staff have put into to try to help with this. Thank you.
All right, and that's the end of that update. And then we have the school reports, which were mostly covered in the other section. So unless there's any specific questions, I believe we're done with the staff reports.
Okay. Okay, not seeing anything from anybody. So let's go ahead and move on to page 7 of our agenda, where we get into the CBOC reports, starting with the consent items, of which we have the adoption of the minutes. We were in kind of a flux area when it came to the minutes. The previous secretary that we had resigned before the last meeting, and the new secretary didn't take office until today. So it fell in my lap to put together the minutes, and I hope to never have to do that again. But if anybody has any questions or comments on the minutes, of course, now is the time to weigh in. Otherwise, we've also got the CBOC information request log and the approved recommendations log. These are more just status reports. Okay. With regards to our membership, we have the attendance review as normal, but we also have the membership roster. We're in a position right now where we've actually got quite a number of applications in the hopper. Former CBOC member and former trustee Tom Panis submitted his application to us last night. We've got it sent in to staff for consideration so they can forward it to the board. But we also had a problem with some of our mandated positions that became vacant when Cameron Moore resigned on us. So I've checked with Maisha Cole. She's in agreement that she will be turning in her application after this meeting is over with. I've already got it prepared. So we'll play a little musical chairs where she'll be going before the board asking to be a parent guardian member of the PTA representative. Of course, that frees up her position, other mandated position of parent or guardian. And I've got an application for Guadalupe. I just need to hear back from her if she's in agreement to switch from being a Richmond representative to being a parent representative. Care to tell me yes or no right now, Lupe?
Yes, Don.
You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
That's good. Okay, so we're good on that. So we'll be processing that. We still got the application from Jason Lindsay from the building trades, the iron workers, local 378, waiting for action by the board. Sally DeWitt has her application for renewal. So the board will be full on that kind of stuff. Okay. As far as chairpersons reports, that's me again. I have not been able to report to the board since our last meeting. There wasn't an opportunity given to me. With the agenda packet that we sent out today, about 2 hours before the meeting, I saw that once again, for some reason, some pages of the items submitted by the board, when I included it in, lumped everything together, all of a sudden we started losing some of the text, not all of the text. We'd lose some of the headers, not all of the headers and footers. It didn't make sense. So I had to rush and try to correct the problem. I sent out that's why you should have revision 3. So if you, on your computers, if you have anything other than revision 3, look on your keyboard in the upper right-hand corner, you're gonna see a big delete button. Just keep hitting delete until all you've got left is revision 3. Okay, and it looks like now that we've got a new KPI report, we may have a revision 4 later tonight for your records. Also wanted to remind everybody that as chair, I'm taking my prerogative to take a position that all are welcome to participate in our CBOC meeting. Of course, if we ever have a vote, only CBOC members can vote. But I want everybody to sit at the grown-ups table. Pull yourself in close to the table. If a member of the public has a comment or a question, I want them to weigh in just like a CBOC member, because we are supposed to be representatives of the people. And we need to open our doors to the people so that they can be a part of it. And I hope that during my time, you're never going to see a clock flashing on the screen here. You're never going to see a timer, because in about an hour and a half, you're going to hear me talking about it. Everybody's got to look at the clock because we got to get done with our meeting. But as far as a timer, just as long as people are respectful and keeping their comments down to a reasonable amount of time, we want to hear what people have to say. All right. With a brand new board, you're always going to have changes in the way they prioritize things. And I've been reporting to you that some of the comments coming out of the board, and it worries me about how this board will handle the CBOC and what they will allow us to do. In particular, right now, standing reports are going to be eliminated. The board president, Mr. Phillips, says that in an effort to streamline the meetings so they end a little bit sooner, he thinks that the 5-minute report from the CBOC is what's dragging it on till 11:30 at night. I disagree with him on that, and I've let him know. I mailed to each of the board members on Monday of last week a 15-page letter Now, I can't write a grocery list under 10 or 12 pages, but it was a 15-page letter with about 40% of it having to do with CBOC items. I think that having a board liaison is an important asset so that we've got an interaction between the board and the CBOC. I think that being able to report not only to the board, but to the public at home at the board meetings is an important thing. I know that people are listening or watching, because usually when I finish up my report, I get 5 or 6 emails or texts within minutes afterwards. Somebody's paying attention. But I had a conversation with Board President Phillips just the other night. He says that instead of a standing report, if there's anything important that I think needs to be brought to the attention of the board and the public, I can sign up under public comment and he'll give me a minute and a half there. Or if there's something really important, I can request a special accommodation at the beginning of the meeting to give a short, brief report. But then also he says that we can include it in any of our issues or concerns, we can include them in the annual report. So if we got an issue going on today, for instance, we can put it in the annual report. So when it comes out a year and a half from now, the public and the board, if anybody reads it, can be made aware of it. I kind of passed on to him. I didn't think that was a viable option, not nearly as much as or as good as communicating directly with the board and the public as things are happening. This will be an ongoing issue. Nothing has been decided to be finalized. If anybody has any ideas about the role of the CBOC when it comes to the oversight of the bond program, I just suggest that you contact your trustees and let them know. Immediately before Christmas, I think the Wednesday, I want to thank Louis Freeze for giving me a site tour of the new Obama school. They'd already moved in their boxes of materials from the other sites. It was kind of moving day kind of thing. But it was nice to see the school without construction trailers, without all the things that you see during construction, but before it has that lived-in look. It was very nice. I took a number of photographs. Again, I thank Louis for being so accommodating. He has always been accommodating to me when I want to go visit a school. I appreciate that. But it also reminded me, he and I have had this discussion before, that we seem to have gone to different schools where the definition of complete is different. I mean, we completed Pinole Valley High School and cut the ribbon about a year and a half ago. And yet they're still doing work out there. But with the Obama school, I didn't see anything that suggested to me that it wasn't complete, as in it's done. And that was something very good. I appreciated seeing a school that was actually completed. So, okay. And with that, if there's any questions or comments, okay, let's go ahead and move on to item O on page 8, which is the audit schedules. And I'll turn this over to Anton Young here. He's been very instrumental in helping to draft up these documents, and I'm very thankful for his assistance. He keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson Gosney. Number of issues I want to bring to the attention of the committee, starting with the Christie White financial audit. You'll notice that we're scheduled for our exit conference at our next meeting. Moving over to the next column, the financial audit with Bailey, the performance audit. You'll notice there's a exit conference scheduled at our next meeting, but there's a footnote indicating that they may not be ready for an exit conference, and this is a progress update. So that is concerning to me because this schedule has been out for several months, and now we're finding out that they may not have an exit conference. They're proposing a joint meeting with the board on March 31 to accept this report, but that meeting has not been scheduled and it was not on the board's calendar that was approved at the organization meeting. So that's troubling to me. Going to the next column, the forensic view by Moss Adams, you'll notice that that is a entrance conference scheduled for our next meeting. That has not been confirmed by the district. Going over to the next column, you'll see the forensic review of phase 1.5 was scheduled for today. That also was not confirmed by the district, nor did they give us any advice when we gave them this schedule that that was not going to happen at this meeting. So that's very troubling to me in terms of this schedule. It seems like we're not communicating or effectively with the district on these schedules. I don't know what we can do better. We send the schedules to the district prior to putting them on our agenda. And that's where we are at this point. So it's very concerning to me. That's the end of my report.
Lorraine, your hand is up.
Yeah, Anton, would you, we're due for an exit conference or an entrance conference next month. Would you explain for the new members what that is and what we should do to prepare for it?
The entrance conference is where we talk with the auditor, and the auditor talks about the, firstly, we talk about the schedule, because that's the most important thing that we're interested in, is their schedule in terms of the field work and preparation of drafts and final reports, and how it coordinates with the meeting schedule, both for the CBOC and the school board, who both have to accept these reports prior to the March 31 deadline. The March 31 deadline, as you know, only regards to the financial audit, the performance audit, not the forensic review. At the exit conference, typically we look at a draft of the report and we see if there are any changes or things that are incorrect that need to be revised. That's normally what happens at the exit conference.
Okay. So the exit conference for, what is it, this year, 2/8 CBOC for the financial audit? Is that, I'm sorry. Do we, I mean, our meeting, is that a date our meeting is on? How do we know when to do that date?
Well, that is the date of our meeting.
Okay.
And what we asked the district to coordinate with the auditor to see if those dates work. In other words, all these dates we proposed, and we asked the district to coordinate with the auditor to see if the auditor can meet those dates. In the case of Christy White, they said yes. In the case of Bailey, they say, we don't know. Which means, does that mean we might not get the audit on schedule for the legal deadline? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's troubling.
Right.
And if you tell me you don't know, what date do you know?
Yeah. Well, is there a way to get somebody from the CBOC, the board, and the auditors together to set up these dates so it's more finalized?
Well, I'm communicate with lead auditor Romo.
Yeah.
So I was designated by the CBOC to be the communication link with the district on the audit schedule.
Right.
And I do that faithfully. Every month I send a draft to Romo. And I get back what you have footnoted here. Or I don't get back anything.
Right.
So that's where we are. Very troubling, very disturbing, not very comforting.
Thank you, Anton. But I just wanted to back up on what Anton was saying, that when we deal with our auditors, we are not supposed to directly contact our auditors, because every time they pick up the phone, the meter is running. You know, we're supposed to go through staff on that, and Anton's been doing that. I've been doing that as much as possible. I mean, when we had interviews with Moss Adams, I called up just to see if they could arrange for a telephone conference call. This was just a simple phone call asking, you know, can you contact somebody, make an arrangement? They said, well, you got to go through her just to ask us that question. a little frustrating on my part. But we want to make sure that we do not abuse any interaction with our auditors. We need to go through staff. They're supposed to be dealing with staff. We're supposed to be dealing with staff. And that's exactly what Anton has been doing and what I try to respect as well. Also, it doesn't do any good to have too many chiefs actually trying to control things. I don't need to weigh in. I've got Anton to do our bidding on there, and I have full faith in what he's doing. He keeps me informed about what he's doing, and we can just leave it at that. But just as Anton is troubled, I am troubled as well. Now, one of the biggest things, it doesn't matter if our auditors are ready on March 31st. If the board does not schedule a joint meeting where we can have presentations and the total joint group can be asking questions and at the same time, it's not going to do a whole lot of good. That's not the most efficient way of doing things. And right now, joint meetings is one of the things the board president says that we got to get rid of. I pointed out to them, it's in the board policy as well. We'll just change the board policy. Well, so my recommendation between the CBOC members, the members of the public, if you believe that the board and the CBOC should be meeting at the same time as they get this final report and authorize it, or then lobby the board, let them know this is important to us. I will be sending an email to the full board later tonight saying we need to schedule this joint meeting and this is why we need to schedule it. But my voice only goes so far, especially since I keep stepping on toes with some members of the board.
It seems like we're having trouble with this, with these audit schedules is with the staff. Does the board know we're having trouble with the staff getting these finalized?
I don't know what the board knows.
So maybe we should send a letter to the board saying we're having trouble with some of the staff getting these schedules. Could they look into it or something?
It might benefit us to, instead of going to the board, going to the person that the board or that the staff members report to. Now, we're talking about Dr. Wold and Mr. Duffy.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Duffy. Let them know.
If they don't know we have the problem, you got to let them know.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And so I will make sure that they are all aware of this.
Okay.
One
So
of the things I
maybe
think-
somebody else can
And
wait.
Don,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Don, I'll go ahead and I'll take responsibility for this one and see if we can't get an update on the dates.
All right.
We'll try to
Okay.
get a response by the end of the week, for sure.
Okay. That sounds good. Anything else? Sally, your hand is up.
Yes, I'm just wondering if there was any talk about the liaison from the board to the CBOC, or is that still, in Mr. Phillips' view, a dead issue?
He has
Because
told
this would
me-
be an example where a liaison might be able to fill in that blank and tell us what the board knows or doesn't know.
he has told me, person to person, that's the thing. He says it's not important, that we don't need a board liaison, that staff will tell him everything that he needs to know. I disagree with him, and I've let him know that. I've let the rest of the board know that in no uncertain terms. But once again, this is something that having the rest of the CBOC weigh in and lobby the full board on this kind of thing, perhaps they'll listen and agree with us. We have no idea.
Two issues. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. At this time, though, they really haven't assigned anybody to these different committees and such. I thought they were going to do it at the retreat the other day, but they had some team building exercises. Oh, by the way, one of the exercises, they were telling stories. Each person has a different part of it. And trustee Jamila Smith-Foles, she is a great storyteller. She is great. Okay. Anything else on this? All right, let's go on to item P, amend board policy 9270, which has the conflict of interest. And once again, we'll turn things over to Anton.
At the board September 16th meeting, this matter was on the agenda. And at that meeting, it was tabled. I think my concern is that the recommendation from staff did not include any of the provisions recommended in the forensic audit. Forensic audit was completed and accepted by the board over 4 years ago. So it was troubling to me that none of the proposals were including, but what was more troubling, that staff represented to the board that the amendment that they're proposing would meet the requirements and recommendations of the forensic investigation, and it does not. So I'm proposing that we take action to recommend that to the board, and I'm so moved that.
Sorry, specifically, what action are you asking us to?
Specifically, I'm recommending to the Board of Education that they amend Board Policy 9270, conflicts of interest, to ensure that the amendments are in sync with the Forensic Accounting Investigation Recommendation ML-76, which is the district's notation, and the notation in the report was FI1-1. That is my motion.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion of this?
Don?
Wait, hang on, Sally, is your hand still up?
No, sorry.
Okay, then Lorraine.
Yes. Anton, when you give these requests and things, you are very, very thorough, and I appreciate that. And there's always background information and all. But when you give it to me with an agenda packet and they expect me to vote on it at that agenda, when it's 20 pages long, I cannot give it the due diligence it needs. Is it possible to table this so we can vote next month on it?
My
Well-
concern about, excuse me, my concern about tabling it is that between now and then, a recommendation can't come before the board that is completely contrary to what we're proposing right now. And if they pass that, they're certainly not going to be revisiting it to say, never mind, let's go in a different direction.
Right. Well, in that case, today on this, I'm going to have to abstain, but in the future, perhaps if once we get this 20 pages or something, if you could send it out ahead of time or something, so we can read it over and understand it before we vote on it.
Those 20 pages were sent out a month ago to you as part of the action before the board. It's the same 20 pages that were sent out four years ago in the forensic audit, and it's the same 20 pages that you received a month ago when this agenda item was on the board agenda for September 16th.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize that, so I didn't read it this time.
Oh. All right. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Mr. Anderson, you want to have a roll call vote?
Is he muted?
Mr. Anderson, you there?
I'm the one that's muted. Anton,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Abstain.
Don,
Yes.
Guadalupe,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Aisha,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. John, measure passes with 6 yeses and one no no's and one abstention.
Okay, so the vote is 6-0-1-0. All right. Hang on, I'm marking up. Motion has been approved. Okay. Again, on page 9, item Q, requests and advice. These are kind of miscellaneous requests. Didn't want to have a specific item for each one, but they're all action items. So I'm going to turn things over to Anton. Let him make a suggestion and see where we go with it.
Item 1 pertains to the Forensic Investigation Implementation Task Force. As we all know, Mr. Moore was our representative to that task force. When he resigned, that position is vacant. It's not clear if the district makes the appointment or if the CBOC makes the appointment. I did apply indicating interest in the position over a month ago. I don't know if Mr. Freeze has any thoughts on this.
There we go. Turn on mute. So no, Anton, I don't have a response for you right now. We have received your request to your application for the implementation task force. We also do have your application for the renewal for the CBOC. We're just waiting for the facilities subcommittee or the committee to actually be reformed. And then hopefully we'll get you an answer back the first of next month when we meet again.
Okay, so that's,
All right.
it's going to take 2 months. I would like to make a motion, if that's in order.
Sure. Wait. Before you have the motion, I just want to comment that when this first came up, the action by the board, it was one of those things that was more just, this is what I want to do, rather than thinking of the exact words on how it should happen. Yeah, they didn't say that they wanted the CBOC to submit a name to represent the CBOC. They said that they wanted somebody from the CBOC, which at that time, the way I understood it, anybody from the CBOC could apply for that position. Now, with the CBOC that we had at the time, they interpreted it differently, saying that we needed to appoint somebody to be the representative on that committee. So I disagree with them on there. I believe that if you go back in the minutes of the board meeting, from September 2016, when this happened, that it will bear me out. But I think we're all in agreement that Anton is our guy, and that Anton has submitted his application or his request to them. If they just, action needs to be taken. But if you want to make a motion, then go ahead and do it now, sir.
My motion is we recommend to the Board of Education that they appoint a representative from the CBOC to the Forensic Investigation Implementation Task Force to fill the vacancy caused when CBOC member Cameron Moore resigned from the CBOC. I so move.
I'll speed things along and second it myself. Any discussion on this item? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Anderson?
I'm off mute. All right, I'll vote yes. Raisa,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes,
Guadalupe,
Sorry, couldn't unmute. Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes,
and Anton.
Yes,
Unanimous, 7-0-0-0.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item.
next item pertains to the joint CBOC board meetings. As Don discussed earlier, the board policy 7214.2 provides for joint meetings in the first and third quarters of the year. It seems to me if the board is going to change that policy, they need to do it in the order on the agenda of the board meeting. It requires 2 readings. At this point, it's not on the schedule for the first quarter or the third quarter. So I would like to make this motion, recommend to the Board of Education that they honor their own board policy 7214.2 and schedule the 2021 Joint Board CBOC meetings during the first quarter, January through March 2021, and third quarter, July through September 2021. That is my motion.
Once again, to speed things up, I will second it. Any discussion? Mr. Anderson,
Anton. Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Lorraine,
Yes.
Don,
yes.
Guadalupe,
yes,
Sally,
Yes.
Aisha,
yes,
and I vote yes. Again, unanimous.
Okay, item number 3.
Item 3, one of our primary roles is to oversee the expenditures of the bond program. Each month, we receive a listing of the payments made on the bond program. I think it would be useful for the CBOC to review some of the backup documents. During the existence of the audit subcommittee, we would routinely take several items each month and ask for the backup so that we could review them. And in doing that kind of review, we discovered items that were mischarged, inappropriately charged, not following procedures, etc. So I would like to see if the staff would be open to us picking 3 invoices each month and having the backup documentation in the agenda packet so that everybody could see it. And the way that would work, we would pick 3 invoices from the prior month's accounts payable listing, because those are checks that are already been issued. So in any event, in order to get that process started, I would like to make this motion, if that's in order.
Before we actually get to the motion, let me hear from staff whether they're just willing to say yes to this. That might make things a little simpler.
I think this is something we can be able to produce.
I mean, especially in light of the fact that you used to do it when we had the audit subcommittee. You used to do it all the time. And you're asking for significantly fewer invoices. Would that work for you, Anton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have a commitment from Louis Freeze. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're down to just the calendar and the future agenda topics. On the calendar, again, these are the meetings that we selected last month. I found it amusing that I used the calendar that for the district meetings, I used the calendar that they had posted, and just a couple of days later, they changed a number of them. Made it a little bit different. Just make sure you use this calendar.
Sorry.
At district meetings. Okay. Any questions on the calendar? Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm seeing that Trustee Reckler has joined us. She said that she would be here a little bit ago. I didn't notice exactly what time she showed up, but welcome. Always appreciate trustees joining the meetings. I've always sent the trustees copies of our agendas and an invitation to attend the meetings. It's very nice that we're getting a couple of them that are actually showing up. Okay, item number S, future agenda topics. Does anybody have anything that they would like brought up at our next meeting or in the future? Oh, I'm sorry. Once we get the some sort of mechanism to hold Zoom meetings or Google chat meetings or whatever format we use, I will be coordinating things with Greg Vizinu on his tutorials. We had talked before about, I'd say Greg and I had talked before about doing this after the first of the year. Well, it's after the first of the year. So right now that's the missing link on that. So before anybody brings up for a future agenda item, these tutorials, it's being worked on. Okay, but is there anything else that anybody would like brought up? Going once? Going twice? Okay. If we've got nothing else that anybody wants to bring up, our next scheduled meeting is Monday, February 8th, 2021. Oh, before we go, again, I want to thank staff for their help in providing documents for our agenda packets. It's not an easy task. Everybody is shorthanded. At this particular time, you may have noticed that you really didn't even get the full agenda packet until Sunday morning, because Melissa was working till almost midnight on Saturday night to get the PMP to me. I told her that I thought it was too important to have to wait another month on. To me, it was important to get this out. We got the agenda posted on time to stave off my room at the Brown Act prison for another month. But as far as the agenda packet, I sent out what we had, letting everybody know that there would be an addition to it. She got me that. Unfortunately, my eyes just wouldn't stay open when she sent it to me, and I had to wait till 6 o'clock the next morning to put it together. But I want to thank Melissa for all of the work that she does in trying to get me all these documents. It's not a small amount of work on her part. It's not like she's got this huge staff that says, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. It's all in her lap, and she's been doing a great job, and I appreciate it.
Well,
So,
and
we have nothing else. This meeting is adjourned at 3:57 p.m.
thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank everybody who's not on the committee for coming. Appreciate it.
All right, bye now, everybody.
Bye, everybody.